This is Claudette Miller, host of A Matter of Interpretation. We are back for the second part of our interview on Hip Hop Cares, and local organization that reaches out to the homeless population. Our guest, Jeff Gill, will have a moment of prayer. Most gracious Father, we come to you thanking you. We thank you for your wisdom and your guidance. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. We were talking about, I want to talk about the move, and it seems like, and I want to talk about what's going to happen to 2nd and Broadway during Derby.
As far as our outreach goes,
Uh-huh.
it's not affected. But we've operated the past 3 years during Derby time. It's never affected. We're not affected by the parade. We're not affected by any of the festivities. The city has been really good as far as working with us because they know that the need is there and they know that we're legit. So they give us a lot of leeway.
Okay.
We're not affected. Now the folks that we serve can be affected in different ways, and I would love to touch on that. When I first got started, I did notice the same pattern that everybody in the community notices. Well, it's getting close to Derby time, so they start doing these cleanups, these camp sweeps. And I've noticed it, and it makes people angry because it's like, well, they're trying to sweep it under the rug, so people that come in, they don't see that the issue is there. While there may be truths to that may be a driving factor, we also have to take into account the safety of the folks experiencing homelessness. We have to protect them as well. Thunder Over Louisville, for instance, we have hundreds of thousands of people down at Waterfront, and they're all day, they're drinking and they're getting nice and inebriated, and they're having a good time, and you have groups of young folks that are unsupervised that like to jump on people and record it and put it on Facebook. They go about in the city after Thunder Over Louisville, and what happens to the people that's sleeping on the sidewalks? We have to protect them also. When you have mobs of people walking up Jackson Street or Jefferson Street or Preston Street, you've got all these people out there minding their business, sleeping in their tent, and then you've got groups of people that walk past that think it's funny to hit somebody in the face, because who's gonna do anything? They're homeless, so who's gonna do anything? We have to protect them as well. What my issue is, and I've spoke with Barbara Sexton Smith about it a lot over the past 6 months, safe campgrounds. We need somewhere to be able to put the folks that want to sleep outside. We could build a new shelter the size of Dosker Manor, and every room could have pillow top mattresses. Some people will not go inside. No matter how big it is, no matter how clean it is, no matter how new it is, some folks will not go inside. So you do have the issue of where do we have people that can be safe? And we know that we can do constant health checks, because with addiction issues being so relevant, it's very important that we as outreach groups and we as people in the community that care do constant checks on people. Yes, there is a lot of movement right now, but I will say this in regards to Derby and the way that the city's handling the issue as far as homelessness goes. That's the only camp that has even been talked about as far as being cleared out. And to be fair, the city's been talking about handling that since November. This isn't a new thing. The city didn't just pop up 2 weeks ago and say, we've got Derby coming up, it's over, we've got to shut it down. They've been working on trying to fix this for months now, which is why Low Barrier Shelter opened. which is why the surplus money back in January was allocated where it was. That money went to fund the low barrier shelter. It went to fund the outreach team that I'm actually a part of with St. John's and Up for Women and Children. It went to fund the storage facilities for the folks experiencing homelessness, as well as other amenities like St. Stephen's opened up a low barrier shelter for families as well. So the city cares. Some people in the city care. And I think that we as a community, we misplace our anger. And when you misplace your anger, you're losing focus on what we need to be angry and upset about, which is we need more resources. We need more caseworkers. We need more social workers. We need more peer support specialists. We need more support for the underlying issues. Shelters isn't going to fix it all.
Let me ask you this. As far as mental health, how do you, say someone calls you, okay? Do they call you only for, because they're ready to go through rehab, they're ready to go through withdrawal, or do they call you, how do we identify trauma? How do we identify mental health issues that are systemic in homelessness?
Paying attention to eyes, paying attention to hands, paying attention to actions. Conversations say a lot. Usually within a couple of conversations you can kind of diagnose someone. And I'm not a medical professional. I never went to medical school. I never read a bunch of books. I don't have degrees, but I have experience. I have a lot of experience. And I'm usually pretty spot on when seeing something and knowing that, okay, that's PTSD. Because of things that they've told me that have happened in the past, and I know how they react to certain things now. To answer your question as far as do people only call me when they're ready for rehab, no. People will call me at 2 o'clock in the morning because they've had a hard day and they don't have anybody else to talk to. And they want to hear from somebody that it's going to be okay. Or if there's a squabble somewhere in a camp, they'll call and say, hey, this is going on. Or there was a fire at a camp about a month ago, and it was really late at night. It was like 11:30 at night, and somebody in the camp had given me a call and was like, there's a fire here. Why? I headed straight down there. And it wasn't an emergency situation that time, but it could have been. And it's important for us to be on call like that, because if it would have been an emergency situation and I would have been in a position to be able to help people. I mean, I've taken people to the hospital. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had to take a gentleman to the hospital who had frostbite on both of his feet. If he wouldn't have, and here's another thing that really blew me away when I really got into really being involved in outreach as far as seeing the problems. The way that the hospitals deal with folks experiencing homelessness will make you sick to your stomach in a lot of cases. They'll go in for help, and the common census at most of the hospitals seems to be, well, they just want free shelter. They just want somewhere warm to stay. Doesn't matter how sick they are. This gentleman that had frostbite on both of his feet, and it was very noticeable. All of his toes were purple. I mean, it was noticeable of what was going on. He could barely walk. I had to pretty much carry him into the emergency room. And if I wouldn't have sat with him that night, they would have let him out. I had to fight. I had to advocate with the doctors and say, no, if you let him leave tonight, he's going to lose his feet. I had to remind them of their liability. I had to remind them of their responsibility. And I had to remind them that there's a level of humanity that we all need to show. No matter your position, no matter your job title, no matter where you're at in life, every single one of us have a responsibility to be humane. We all have the responsibility to show a level of humanity. Well, with that, they did keep him. And he ended up staying in the hospital for about a week and a half, which was another fight, because we got to fight to keep him in there, because as soon as they feel like they're okay, they want to let them on out. They don't have insurance. You can't make money off of somebody that doesn't have insurance. Again, we got to kick it back to we need more humanity. Okay, you might not be able to make money, but you're making money off of $20 aspirins from people who do have insurance. So let it all even out. You know what I mean? But that's what people reach out for when there's emergency situations, when someone needs somebody to talk to, when they want some type of help, when their tent ripped and they need another tent because they don't know where they're gonna sleep for the night, or they missed the food serve and they need some snacks, or whatever the case may be. Their shoe fell apart, so they need some boots and it's freezing cold. There's a wide number of reasons why people would give me a call, but that's why I give out my personal number. I don't have a separate phone. You can only reach me between these hours. No, you call me anytime, because that's what's needed.
I can attest to the fact that he answers the phone. Because I'll call and he'll say, yeah, this is Jeff. And, but the tents, okay. And I think that was on the Amazon wish list.
Yes.
Because where do the tents come from? Are they all donated?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all donated. So that would be something that if you were going to do an outreach, you don't have to worry about the specifications because it's on the Amazon wish list. You can go in, one tent. If you can buy one tent and have somebody have a place to stay, because they may have a traumatic disorder. They may not want to go in. And I think our actual knowledge of homelessness, so I'm so glad you're here, is we're ignorant a lot of times to the various things. I mean, we know the stereotypical situations,
right,
but the actuality of how people maintain.
right.
Because I remember I was on Jefferson. My car was broke down. I was catching a bus, and I had to go to the bathroom. And nobody would let me use the bathroom. I went across the street to the hotel, and I needed to check my blood sugar. And the guy looked at me and he said, do you have a room here? I said, no, but I need to use the restroom. And he said, well, I'm sorry, you don't have a room here? You can't go to the bathroom.
Right.
So I went across the street to the gas station, and they had chairs where I could sit and eat my food, and they said, nope, can't go to the bathroom here. And I was like, but it serves the reason that if you have chairs and people are waiting, for the bus, that you would have the ability to go to the bathroom, because you can go to the bathroom, then you can drink more stuff, you can buy more. It's a marketing tool, if nothing else. If you don't care, nope, can't go to the bathroom.
Right.
So I end up walking up the street in the rain, to White Castle on 2nd, I guess it's on 2nd Street in Jefferson, to go to the restroom. And so when you look at things that people need and you think that you can't go to the bathroom, and I understand, the hotel is saying that we have, upscale guests and we have all of this, but there's got to be some kind of way for people to be able to have access to basic, very basic needs.
Yes. And that is, you hit the nail on the head. That's something that I've also spoke with Barbara Sexton Smith about quite frequently, is the need for those facilities. We need more specific facilities for the folks that are experiencing homelessness, such as restrooms. One of the biggest things that I've got feedback from people in the community, businesses, colleges, well, they leave their human waste on our lot, or they leave their human waste on the sidewalk, or they leave their human waste behind the building. Okay, that's fair. I've never met one person that likes to use the restroom on a busy street. It's not like they're choosing to do this, but when you gotta go, you gotta go. And if you go here and they say no, and you go here and they say no, then you walk down here and they say no. At what point does your body say, okay, I can't hold this anymore, I gotta go? You gotta go. So instead of being upset at them for doing that, let's understand why this is happening, and then let's work on fixing the problem, which is providing those amenities. Now, to be fair, a lot of the businesses do that for liability, because a real part of that is some people will use that restroom as a place for them to do drugs. Mm-hmm. And then they'll pass out, and then the business holds some sort of liability behind that. So I can understand from that point of view, but to just dismiss it and say, well, we don't have anything is not acceptable to me. We can definitely fix that issue, and we definitely have places in the city where we can build something that would be useful for them, such as public showers, such as public restrooms, such as a facility where people who need gloves at 1 a.m. because they don't have them, they can go here and they can do that. That is something that I've personally been working on for a while now, and I definitely expect to see in the near future. Basically, I refer to it as a home base, somewhere where people can go and they can get the basic necessities, like use the restroom. We take small things for granted all the time, like restrooms, but the folks on the streets, that's a very real thing to them. Even like, not to get off on a different topic here, but a few weeks back it was pouring down rain all Saturday, cold rain too. I mean, pouring down rain. And I was out pretty much all day, in and out of the camps. And I mean, so by the time the day ended and I got back to my home, I was soaking wet from head to toe. And I started to peel off all of these layers of clothing, my wet coat and my wet hoodie and my wet shirt and my wet pants. And when I got it all off, I realized that was like 10 pounds of stuff. Like, it was heavy, and I didn't even realize it until I got it off. That's what they experience every time it rains. To us, it's like, oh, I got to get from my home to my car. I hope I don't get soaking wet. To them, it's, I hope I don't get wet because I'm not going to be dry until tomorrow. Understanding these things can help us deal with people a little bit different. So when you pass somebody on the street that's experiencing homelessness and they're not exactly the nicest to you, understand why. Understand that they had to get up at 7 a.m. and leave that shelter to go get breakfast. Or they had to wake up at 7 a.m. out of their tent to walk to go get breakfast. No matter if it's raining, no matter if it's hot, cold, snowing, doesn't matter. They have to do these things. They walk to go get breakfast. They walk to the day shelter. They walk to somewhere to get lunch. They walk back to the day shelter. They walk to get dinner. They walk back to the shelter or wherever they stay. It's a lot of walking every single day, just for food, just for basic necessities. So when you say, well, they're lazy, that's what kills me when people are like, they're just lazy. Why don't they get a job? They're lazy. They walk more than probably anybody that you would know because they have to survive. That's just to survive. That's not, then where do they fit in the job applications? When do they fit in the job interviews? And when they go to these job interviews, where do they get the haircut? Where do they get the nice clothes to go to the job interview? How do they feel better about themselves before they walk into that interview to make sure they get that job? Then, if they get the job, how do they get to that job every day? How do they take a shower every day so their coworkers don't say, oh, they smell bad, or, you got to do something about that. These are real things. So instead of just saying, quit being lazy, go get a job, if you care that much, contribute to helping. Get them some nice clothes. Get them some nice dress shoes. Get them a haircut. Get them some TARC passes. Help in contributing to them taking that next step. So.
And there are so many businesses that have shower facilities. When I worked at Sprint in Charlotte, North Carolina, we had where if somebody's water went off or something, they couldn't make it to work, they could come to work an hour early, and we had a shower facility in order for them to change.
Right.
And there was a washer and dryer there, because you got to have clean clothes. You can't put dirty clothes on, even if you find the facility. Your clothes need to be ironed. So if you don't have electricity, because someone said to me when we were down on Broadway, they were like, we don't have microwaves. I'd love to take soup, but there's no microwave anywhere that we could, if we can't eat it right here, then we could be able to heat it up later.
Right.
And those are things that we take as basic.
Mm-hmm.
As basic. And so we have to not only be able to give, we have to give pragmatically. We have to understand and put ourselves in a situation where there's no toaster.
Right.
There's no microwave, there's none of those things. So in giving, we want to be able to give things that are practical.
Right. And it all goes back to understanding. And that's what's most important about the outreach with Hip Hop Cares on Sundays. I can talk all day long about experiences that I've seen down there, conversations that I've had. I can talk all day long about homelessness. Until you experience that, until you're standing shoulder to shoulder to somebody who has absolutely nothing, somebody that feels broken, somebody that feels like they have no hope, but is still smiling, is still thanking you for the smallest of things, a peanut butter sandwich. They're giving you a hug for a peanut butter sandwich. It's humbling. And when we can humble ourselves, no matter if we're whatever we're talking about in life, when we're able to humble ourselves, we're able to learn. And when we're able to learn, we're able to grow. We got to grow together, though. So that's kind of what Hip Hop Cares is about, and that's the importance of us working together to start to chip away at some of the underlying issues of homelessness.
I remember hearing a conversation on Broadway, and the young woman was articulating herself about teachers and the teacher pension bill. Mm-hmm. And she was, she was rousing the crowd to support teachers, the hardest working people around, and talking to them about the pension as she was in line. Mm-hmm. And her thoughts were not on her.
Right.
Although she was standing in the line, her thoughts were on the support that she wanted to gather, right, to support others.
Right. Others
that may look at her in a different light, others that may not see her circumstances, might see through her. Right. And yet she was there to support, right, their cause and understand their cause. And, I think a lot of times we don't understand. Someone asked me about going down, and a couple of people, when I said I'm going to, go down and say, well, be safe, be careful, I'm going to pray for you. Those may be in a situation, there may be a situation where I don't feel as safe. Mm-hmm. around a certain person, an individual, mm-hmm, not a group of people, but an individual. And I said, people feel comfortable because I don't judge.
Right. Right.
And I think that when people interact with you and just sit and talk with you. And, you know, they can tell, because I know Kim, I go down there and talk to Kim, and she'll say, you know, people say, I'm not looking for a job, but where am I going to shower?
Right.
Because, and I have to be clean, or else they're going to fire me, or you know, people are going to talk about me, and I'm going to have low self-esteem.
Right.
So I feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And those are real issues.
Yes. And it's important that we keep in mind, like with the lady that was speaking on the teacher, she may have been a teacher at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a story. Everybody is somebody's daughter or son or brother, sister, uncle, aunt, cousin, niece, nephew, mother, father. Everybody is somebody to somebody. My father died on the streets, a homeless man, before I even got to meet him. All I can hope is that people gave him the same respect that I encourage everyone to give the people that we meet, because he may have given up, and that's what led to him passing away in the situation that he did. He just may have simply not had the support. Support is so important when you're talking about people that feel like they're broken. I have become very close with several people that have committed suicide. I've became very close with people that have overdosed and died. I've become very close with people who have been murdered. Again, everybody is somebody to somebody, and everybody has a story, and it's important that we keep that in mind instead of just trying to throw a blanket over, well, they're homeless. I don't really like to use that term personally myself and say this homeless man. No, this is a man experiencing homelessness. He will get out of this situation. So homeless doesn't define this guy. He's just going through something right now. And I feel like the way that we approach people, as long as we do it with going back to what I always go back to, love and respect. If we approach people with love and respect, and we maintain that through our conversations and the way that we treat each other and the way that we deal with each other, we'll be okay. But if we don't, then we won't.
I always remember, and I work in healthcare, and I deal with a lot of elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And they will say, you don't behave as some of the others. And I will say, because your circumstances are not as you would have them to be at this moment, there is no reason for me to strip you of your dignity.
Right.
There's no reason for me to do that.
Right.
Because that's all you have. For some, that's all you have left.
Mm-hmm.
You have your words, your bond, you have who you are. And one other question that people wonder is, why don't you go back to your family? And what they don't understand is a lot of times the family was the enigma of the trauma.
Yeah.
That you face, and you're running from that ultimate trauma. We are out of time.
Okay.
We are out of time, and I thank you so much for coming.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
I want you to reach out. They have a Facebook page, Hip Hop Cares. Look at the Amazon wish list. See what you can do. This is a community base. He takes no money. So you can't write a check, but you can order some things. This has been, stay tuned for this series. Stay tuned for this series on WIGN TV. It is my efforts plus God's grace. This is Claudette Milner, host of A Matter of Interpretation. Have a blessed week.